Okay, it's 6 p.m. and I am calling this meeting of the Village Board work session to order. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all very much. All right, we have some discussion items which we are going to begin with tonight. And I do have Alex Wallach here, who is going to talk a little bit about the workforce housing proposal that was done by BFJ and that we would like to move forward with new zoning regulations in the office district to allow additional workforce housing to be located close to the village center to hopefully eliminate some of the traffic we have. But Alex, do you want to just give a brief overview, if you wouldn't mind, maybe up at the... Do
you want me to sit here or at the podium?
Yeah, we can sit here, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
So as you know, the village completed its comprehensive master plan in 2022. It was done by consultants at BFJ. One of the recommendations that came out of that was to explore some opportunities for affordable housing. So we had BFJ come back and do a supplemental study for workforce housing. And their recommendation was to look for ways to incorporate workforce housing in the office districts, which is the OD district, which follows North Sea Road, and the HRO office district, which follows Hampton Road.
Right.
They recommended looking at some small mixed-use units, like live-work type of units, where somebody might live upstairs of a shop or an office, and small multifamilies, where you might have, like, say, a duplex or 3 units in a small residential building. So I printed some copies of that report with their recommendations, and just in case you don't have it. And the code amendment that's been drafted for consideration tonight turns that recommendation into code, which would make it law, which would allow people to apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask for a special exception to do a small residential unit or a live-work unit with the condition that part of those units would be set aside for workforce housing. So that housing would be affordable for working people, and you'd also have less traffic because they'd be able to work on site or within the village and not have to have people come in and out of the village as much.
Right. Okay, that's good. So I wanted to obviously open it up for board members to I know, Rob, you looked at this and had a couple of suggestions, but certainly would be happy to have anyone on the board make any comments they have or thoughts or things.
How many, does the study analyze how many potential units could be envisioned and being created by changing the zoning?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we reached out to BFJ to help with the environmental review. That's one of the questions that we're going to answer. But we expect that the number is probably pretty small. As you know, both of those corridors are highly developed as they are. And also the Suffolk County Health Department has very strict regulations about development. So we expect that probably there's only a handful of properties in the village that would be able to take advantage of something like this.
So 20?
I think 20 would be optimistic.
Well, clearly the whole issues are tied together. Why do we have so much traffic? Because the people who work can't afford to live in the village, so they have to drive in here. So we need workforce housing, but then if we have more houses, where's the sewage going to go? Because we don't have a sewage system, so we got to have this issue of where we're going to put, if we put the additional people in, we have sewage treatment. So it all ties together.
Yep, exactly. And one of the conditions required would be that all of these developments get approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health. So they would still go through the same process and meet all the health department standards. This would just allow for some specific criteria for the zoning, so the zoning board could consider it on a case-by-case basis.
I think it's a great step, and it's just not being used at all right now. It's basically not economically useful as office space, whereas this would be actually a use that the village needs and that the landowners and the property owners probably would appreciate having that opportunity to use it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I should add that it doesn't take away the office use or the other uses that are permitted there. It adds to them. And we have received some interest from property owners and prospective property owners with properties there that are looking for more opportunities of how to market the properties, things to do with those properties that might be underutilized. So this would be one opportunity for them.
Yeah, I would just add some, like the idea that they could have an office on the ground floor and then live above the office, so they would actually live right on site where their business would be located. That happens in a couple of situations now with architects and attorneys, I believe, but not to any large degree. So this would allow more of that, so someone could live and work at their same location.
Nice.
I did have some comments. One was, I was curious as to why we exclude the Village Business District. What I've heard is that effectively because new residential use in the Village Business District is likely moot because of septic issues in particular, that we not include that district, at least for now. I suppose you could do it the other way around and include it and just say that, unfortunately, it's vestigial until we solve the septic issue. But my bigger concern just has to do with the percentages, because if I've read this correctly, we're basically saying you can kind of get a bonus to increase some density as long as that density is basically used for workforce housing. But you know, and this isn't a market issue and it's not a moral issue, it's just a practical issue. If we're trying to solve for traffic, and if we're creating, let's say, someone would otherwise maybe propose 8 units converting to a residential use, but now they'll get 10 units because they can upsize. We're creating more service pressure and more service need anyway, so I'm wondering what net benefit we get. If an 8-unit apartment building needs, 1 or 1.5 full-time people to basically take care of it with the services that go on during the week, what net benefit are we getting by providing housing for a couple of people along with it? It feels like we're adding development pressure. So one way to handle that would be to increase the percentage from 25% and make it a higher percentage, so that we're eating away at the need for workforce housing. Right now it feels like we're creating density and creating enough workforce housing maybe to accommodate that density and a little bit more in terms of services. I don't know if you have a response to that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And what that number of affordability set aside should be, is a matter of discussion.
Yeah.
I think the goal is to try and set it not so high that it doesn't become economically infeasible for somebody to build a development like this. The other part of that is probably won't see 8 or 10 unit developments just based on the lot size. I think we're probably talking about 3 or 4, maybe 5 at the largest if you had a large property. And so you're right, it would help address the housing issue. The other consideration is the existing permitted uses there include office. Offices also have a high number of trips that are generated daily throughout the day, whereas residences tend to have lower trips generated, and they're concentrated really at 2 particular times. So we don't think that if something goes from office to residential, there's going to be a significant impact.
Okay. And just as a separate question, kind of following up on Roy, I get that in this exercise, and there are limited opportunities, and we have some consultants looking maybe at what the goal would be or what the likely number of units would be. But from a village-wide standpoint, do you have any thoughts as to how many workforce units we should, either through this means or through working maybe in partnership with the Southampton Housing Association, how many workforce housing units should we be looking to try to create here in the village over the next, say, 3 to 10 years?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if I have a specific number in mind. I think you'd probably have to really do like a market analysis of the larger region to understand what the demand is. I think we have a good sense just based on numbers that we have that the demand is very high. And we know that we're nationwide, we're in a housing crisis. We don't have enough housing, and especially housing at the middle and affordable rates is especially lacking, particularly in this village, just based on land prices. So I don't have a specific number, but I think we know anecdotally there's a great demand for housing.
Is there any mechanism you're aware of to have housing, some form of break or subsidy, I hate to say it, but maybe a tax break, for a unit, say on a second floor, if we ever get there, or in one of these units, that has at least a 12-month lease to a full-time employee of a business in the village? I mean, it'd be great if we could not only provide workforce housing, but have some of that be for the people who work in businesses and shops and restaurants right here in the village, and they could walk to work.
And I think that there's some preference for people who live and work in the village, especially emergency services, that's written into this. There are limitations, I understand, on what you can do in terms of that because of fair housing laws. But we're trying to be especially accommodating for our first responders and for the folks here that work in the village and would like to live in the village as well.
And I would just add, Rob, that it's mandatory that they have at least one. So, for example, if it was a two-unit,
They'd have to-
you'd have 50%.
Yeah.
Even if it was a three-unit, you'd get a third, 33.3%. And I think, knowing the properties and looking at this when I was doing this with Alex, the number of properties and the size that they have, you're not going to get many that have more than a handful at most
Understand.
of units. So it's not going to be a huge increase.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, Alex, with respect to managing this and with fairness being a goal, could you describe how the median income would be monitored? Is there third parties that do this, or the owner of the property couldn't do it for obvious reasons, but could you describe how that works?
Yep, so there's an attachment that I gave to you that was from the BFGA report. That's how the town sets the different income levels.
Right.
So I think what we're targeting is certain income levels, and they explain how that works and what that would look like for different family sizes. One of the requirements, if somebody were to apply to do this, was they'd have to have some kind of housing agreement that would say how the housing would be administered. So whether that's, probably there would be a third party that would take care of the administration. Presumably they would be, filing reports with the copies of the leases with the village as part of that to demonstrate that the rents are at the limits that are allowable by the code and that the household income is consistent with that.
That could be the housing authority or other third party.
Yeah, the way that it's written, it leaves that open-ended, so
Yeah.
it could be any one of those organizations that takes that role.
Thank you.
Ed, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think it's a great program if you're talking about workforce housing. However, what we're doing is opening up new areas for development for residential use. And if we really want to do something about workforce housing, I think that we should make it mandatory 100%, not 25% or 33% or 50%. And there are means of doing it. We have Curtis Highsmith, for example, who develops workforce housing, and he gets grants in order to do that. And if we otherwise, all we're doing is allowing developers to create more probably luxury apartments or homes for people not from local people, and we're just creating more density and more traffic, and and we really do not need more people to come from outside into Southampton. So I think we really should look at this as 100% workforce housing and encourage grants to be able to develop these. And these
Yeah.
are new areas. We're creating new residential areas. We're not talking about areas that already are zoned for residential, and therefore people maybe could work with the 25%, but doing something completely new like this, I would go for 100%.
Well, I think historically these areas were residential, and currently they're mixed use. So there's legacy residential throughout both of these corridors. There's houses and apartments above some stores that have always exist. The zoning, that some of them are pre-existing non-conforming uses. And residential uses right now are currently allowed in the business district with a special exception. And people have been applying for those special exceptions, but there's no criteria on the code. And the density limits that are built into the code really kind of make that infeasible. So this is really just adding some more opportunities to make that housing feasible and also to require workforce housing. I know there are organizations that do build 100% workforce housing. That would be totally permissible under this code. They typically do that with loans and grants and help from the state and federal government. That would be allowable here. It's a minimum, not a maximum. Some of those organizations typically do larger projects than we've seen here. They tend to build things more like in the 50 to 100 unit range just to make the math work out through different programs. I think the idea behind this was that if you allow some market rate development as part of this, it would be economically feasible for a small business owner to be able to add apartments or 2 units on a small property, like the local builders, to be able to do that without having to rely on loans and federal programs, especially since we know some of that funding is being pulled back.
Right. However, the question is who's going to be building, and there's going to be developers most likely will be buying up the properties and developing them. So we're not going to be creating a lot of workforce housing. I think the only way you can create meaningful workforce housing, and I see that the code, the proposed code actually allows for the 100%. I saw that it's in there, but also allows for less. Therefore, if you let the market forces guide this, you're not going to get any 100%. They're all going to be the 25% and 33%. So in my estimate, we really should focus on doing it 100% and see how that works out. And I'm sure that someone like Curtis Highsmith will be able to develop some meaningful, and even if you develop less of them, you're still going to get more workforce housing than you would otherwise. That's my opinion on this.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, the affordability targets, that's subject to approval by this board. Like I said, it was designed to try and make it economical. The concern was that if we adopted the code and none of the units would, pencil out for a small builder to do, then we wouldn't get any workforce housing. And it could only be, nonprofit organizations that are,
Right.
very grant dependent, which is a type of housing that exists, but there can be few and far
I
between.
think the proposal by BFJ is great for areas where residential use is already allowed, and then they want to develop that and put some workforce housing like we did with 71 Hill. But it's something where we're creating, really allowing residential use in an office district. I think we should be more aggressive.
Well, we do allow it now by special exception, which is what this is. It's just a different type of special exception with more specific criteria.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're unfortunately without allowing the private marketplace to be able to produce these on these smaller scales, we're not going to have too many applicants, Ed, that want to do 100% on these small lots in the office district. The companies that want to do 100% are looking at 40, 50 units, where it makes much more sense, and they do get federal financing for that. The other problem with federal financing is there are a lot of strings attached to federal financing, and we would definitely not be able to guide the housing towards local volunteer firemen, ambulance workers, nurses, teachers. It would open it up to everybody, and we would, I think, lose out on the opportunity to have people that are actually working in this village with finding a place to live.
I think then maybe we need further study of this, and maybe
We've studied this a lot,
discussions.
Ed. I appreciate it. And you brought up 71 Hill Street, and you actually voted against 71 Hill Street.
Right.
So you were against,
Well, that's because there
You-
wasn't enough.
not enough. It's
housing.
never enough for you, Ed. But you know what? We live in the real world, and we have to do the best we
need
can do.
more. We need
Okay,
more.
we got your position. Thank you, Ed. I thank you very much. I know that there's actually one person in the audience here who wanted to hear about this because, and unfortunately you can't speak, but we have property that is in the village on Hampton Road where I know that they would like to develop office space and living space in the same structure. So this would allow that.
Yep, we've received a lot of inquiries for that for people, and right now we have to tell them the zoning doesn't allow that type of mixed use.
Right.
It really just allows one or the other. But yeah, we've seen some interest in the market, which is encouraging. We've even seen some real estate listings that have mentioned this code amendment as a future possibility. So I think it's something that people are thinking about.
Yeah. So we will keep working on this. And thank you for being here, and thank you, Alex,
Yeah.
for helping to explain it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the next item I think we're going to address is traffic. So do we have Ryan Winter here? Ryan, why don't you come forward and sit down with us? And we'll talk about the traffic situation, because I know we have a lot of people in the room here who want to talk about traffic. So you lead off in any way you'd like to. Look, I know you're still reviewing the data that was collected during the pilot period, but
Correct.
the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Ryan.
So I appreciate the opportunity to come in and just give an update on what we've been doing. There's several different things we're working on currently. Obviously, the one that's gathering most attention is the traffic on Lee Avenue and Captain's Neck at Hill. We've worked with the police department. They gave us a lot of great data last week, and we're still in the process of going through that. So we don't have any hard summaries or recommendations as of this moment, but we are working on getting something together within the next week or so, and we'll get that over to the village for review and, look at next steps. Just a high-level review of how the ox pasture closure went over that 2-week trial period. There were some successes, and there were some things that we saw that didn't go so good. The traffic on Ox Pasture obviously was cut off, so people took alternate routes, and most of that traffic went down to Great Plains, which was not completely unexpected. We thought there might be a little bit more traffic that diverted in another direction, but it seemed to be fairly consistent with the traffic from Ox Pasture went down to Great Plains. The positive was that once they got onto Halsey Neck and headed back towards Hill Street, was that they kind of split in which roadways they took to get to Hill. It wasn't as much traffic going to Lee as it was previous. So it was, from that perspective, it's kind of providing a little bit of relief to the areas that's getting hit the hardest, but still a lot of traffic on all those side streets, aside from Ox Pasture, taking that traffic on the south side. So again, we're in the process of looking at what we could do to make that situation better for not only Great Plains and Ox Pasture, but obviously Lee and Captain's Neck. So that's kind of where we're at on that. I don't know if anyone has any questions specific to that.
Ron, do you have any data or do you have any sense of professional judgment as to when the no right restrictions from the north side of Hill Street were implemented, and particularly when they were enforced, significantly enforced beginning in January? I know as a resident of Hill Street that it added some traffic to Hill and Halsey and Moses from the north, but that it appeared to me, anecdotally, that the traffic was moving more consistently without those turns coming in further down. Do you have any data or evidence that would show whether any of that traffic that was no longer able to make those turns was diverting to south of Hill Street? Is there a sort of, do you believe that that's further increased traffic pressure coming from the south side of Hill Street?
I think anytime you close off a avenue, people are going to, find other ways, right? So I'm not going to say that there's no impact to the south side of Hill Street based on those closures. But that said, it does not seem that there's a huge difference with those right turn restrictions on the Lee Avenue traffic. A lot of that traffic was already there, even when Somerset and Bishops and Corrigan were allowed to make the rights. What we have been noticing is that a lot more traffic north of Hill Street is heading up McGee towards the traffic signal than was previously. I'm not saying that all the traffic is doing that. Certainly, everybody's going to go the way that they feel is the fastest, but that seems to be our observation.
Thanks.
And I know we talked briefly about, bringing back the no left turn, and you said that we might have to put in some sort of a barrier or structure or create something there so that we don't have people driving over cones.
Yeah, so we're looking at options, again, to, continuing to look at Lee to see what we can do to reduce the impacts of traffic there. The no left turn restriction was, and not surprisingly, challenging to enforce, and it was creating some safety issues on Hill Street that were of concern
U-turns and
to us, just casual observations, and to the police department. So we don't know that putting back what was there on that trial exactly is the best solution. Like the mayor alluded to, there may be some sort of raised median or divider on Hill Street that we would look to incorporate to physically restrict, but that changes the nature of Hill Street and creates issues potentially for emergency services. So
snow clearing.
right. So that may not be the best answer either. So again, we're looking at all
But your
these
office
options.
is still looking at different options.
Yes. Yep.
It would be on Hill Street or on Lee Avenue at the mouth of Hill Street, where it comes out onto Hill.
So we would, there's a couple different things you can do. You can put, they call it a pork chop island, which
Right.
kind of restricts right turns in, right turns out. People can still obviously, start heading right and then wrap their way around it and head back to the west. So they work, but only to the extent that people are, obeying the laws. And if the enforcement issue is challenging, there's a lot of areas where the police are trying to stop people from already, turning in and making dangerous maneuvers in that area. So we don't want to add to that encumbrance on the police department if we don't have to. The other one that I mentioned was thinking of is a raised median that would run down the middle of Hill Street. So you wouldn't have any sort of island within Lee Avenue, but it would be on Hill Street itself. You would not be able to make turns across. So
How
Ever?
would people make a left turn off of Hill onto Lee then, if they wanted to do that?
if we went with that option, you would not be able to. You'd have to go to Captain's Neck or approach from the west and turn in. And that's all something that we'd be looking at if we
Right.
were going to pursue that. But again, that, to me, that's not an ideal option. And none of these options, honestly, are ideal, or, and none of them are going to be a silver bullet to solve all these traffic issues. This is a much larger problem, as everybody knows, and we're just, trying to make it as amenable as we can to the residents.
I mean, I understand that, right now, you're not allowed to turn right on Somerset, Bishop, and Corrigan. That's against the law. I mean, still people are doing it, and we're enforcing it, and not as many people are doing it as used to do it. But when you get down there, and you see, oh my God, I better not make a right turn, I might get arrested. I don't see a whole lot of people making a left turn onto Hill and then trying to make a U-turn. But I did see back in the trial when we closed Captain's Neck that they were trying to make the U-turn. So it might just be driver behavior or a different thing. But obviously you can't let the people get down to Captain's and Lee and then go, oh gosh, now what do we do? We're screwed.
Right.
I
Well,
mean, somehow you got to tell them before they even get there, don't go that way.
Yes. Yeah, and that would be a learned behavior, hopefully, as after it's implemented for a period of time. And I think the same thing has happened with Somerset and Bishops. As you alluded to, there's been much better compliance with the right turn restriction, and people are becoming aware, and they see the enforcement, and they're just adjusting their travel to that. The challenge with the no lefts is that if people decide to violate that, it becomes a little bit more of a hazard than the people that were turning right into traffic,
Right.
because they're creating other issues.
Yeah, I think, this is a volume issue. It has nothing to do with our residents. As you said before, these solutions are pushing the problem to other neighborhoods. And in that spirit, I think the only solution is the political solution of lobbying the town and the county to go back to the pilot that they conducted last spring and make it permanent. In that vein.
You mean up on County Road 39?
Yes,
Yeah.
County Road 39. The traffic moved so efficiently that people didn't need to find alternate routes in our residential streets. That seems to be, in our lifetime, and I know I'm older than everybody else in this room, that seems to be in our lifetime the only rational way to solve this problem. And in that spirit, the chief and I are forcing our way into the highway superintendent's office on Thursday, and you're invited to join us. And we're going to see how we can structure this and get serious about having the town and the county come to the table with their budgets and with their labor contracts and try to do this, because it's the only thing that works.
My observation, Len, during that trial period was that there were probably no fewer cars traveling down Hill Street, but the backed up traffic, instead of being 2.5 to 3.5 hours, was about 40 minutes. And the traffic moved much more quickly down Hill Street, which obviously keeps it off the side streets.
The timing from 7-Eleven to the beginning of the highway was 6 minutes.
Yep.
6 minutes to get there.
Yeah,
3.5 miles. Pretty good.
yeah, and I agree. I think that's the long-term play, is to work with the county and the town to come up with a solution to County Road 39, because the more vehicles
It has to
we
be
can
a
get
I'm sorry.
on that, yep, that's all right, the better we'll be able to navigate the issues on Hill Street. But what we're working with now is just trying to make the best of
Yeah.
the conditions that we have.
It has to be a comprehensive solution that looks at things globally and not just in different neighborhoods.
Let me ask our council, is there any way for us to write a carefully worded sign, maybe on a sign trailer at places like Hampton Road and Wickapog, or David White's Lane, that said limited access to Hill Street? Please consider using County Road 39, or something to that effect. Can we, at the headwaters of the traffic problem in the center or western part of the village, can we do little things to direct people up to the highway?
I mean, you can
In the
put up
meantime?
whatever signs you want. They're not going to be enforceable. People
Yep.
can drive right past them and
Yep.
do what they want,
Yep.
right? So,
But one of the things I would like to try, and I've already ordered the signs through the Department of Public Works, is to put up the signs that say no through traffic. And we need to strategically determine where to place those in our neighborhoods, and then hoping that people who have connections with the apps such as Waze and Google Maps or whatever are able to upload that the village has signs that say no through traffic, and therefore it should be diverted away from those streets, or at least kept, going up to 39 or, Hill Street or whatever exit they're making out of the village.
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of is that, again, unfortunately, the internet has been one of the reasons why this has been created, this problem's been created, because it's telling people exactly where to go through our residential streets, as opposed to staying on, the larger roads, which is what people used to do. But now, you don't even have to be from here, and you can know exactly how to navigate around, traffic congestion just by going down small, narrow residential streets.
Yep.
And so that really is the problem. So again, if the no-through traffic signs can be used to help affect Waze and the routes that they are putting cars on, I think that would be a huge win, because that's really where we're having the biggest problem. And that's why they all went, I think, to Great Plains Road, because Waze said, oh, if this is closed, you just go to the next one.
Right.
And they would do the same thing and go to Meadow Lane if we closed Great Plains. And so, we're just literally shuffling, as I say, deck chairs on the Titanic. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just like, well, okay, now we'll move them here. So I think we're going to try that. Steve has not received those signs yet. He just ordered them.
Okay.
But they should be in next week. And then we're going to have to go around and figure out where to put these signs up on these streets so that people will be told that this is not a through traffic road.
Right. And I think it's a similar situation to what Rob was mentioning, where the enforceability of those signs, I think, is a little bit in question right now. They're
Understood.
identified in
Completely.
the federal manual as a legitimate
There's no-
traffic control sign, but there's nothing in the state
Right,
law
but
that
as long as
allows it.
Waze may
They're not permitted
observe it,
here.
though. If Waze observes it, then, I don't know,
May help.
that's
That
part
would
of
help.
that's part of the challenge.
Right.
But if they don't, there's not going to be this attack on the PD.
No. Yeah, no. And I want to make it clear that, and actually, Eileen, I know you know the law here. The police chief does only have authority to implement emergency measures when there is an emergency, such as a house fire, a motor vehicle accident, a weather event, a tree across the road. Unfortunately, congestion of traffic cannot be considered for these purposes an emergency for which the police chief can do whatever they want to, alter traffic patterns. But I don't know, you want to speak
No,
any
that's
more
true.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, 1602 of the Vehicle and Traffic Law, which gives her emergency powers, only applies to a fire or another special emergency. And there's, case law on it. This is not, traffic congestion is not an emergency under, as defined.
Even
Under-
when it contributes to emergency vehicles not being able to access a certain
No,
area?
it's not an emergency. It's a traffic problem. It's a congestion problem. Otherwise, it would sort of defeat the whole rule. They could just, there's traffic congestion everywhere. You ever been on 95 or on 495 when it's backed up? It's hard for anybody to get through there too. It's the same situation. She does not have the power people think she has to shut down roads, and I'm not sure where this idea came or why people feel free to attack the police chief. She's following the rule, doing the best she can. She's not responsible for traffic. She didn't create the traffic. She's not responsible for it. And this is really a policy issue for this board to decide. They have to decide how to address the traffic. You can pass laws, you can, do the types of things, make permanent some of the pilot programs you have, tried out if you
Yeah.
think it's gonna be effective.
Yeah,
But then you have to live with it.
yeah.
And if you just push it down to another neighborhood next year, we'll be having the same discussion next year. So,
Ed, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think we said plenty here.
Yeah. Any other solutions?
Well, I heard that we should close Ox Pasture, Great Plains, and Meadow Lane, and only let the residents go by.
you can't you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right, you understand that, right?
I
Yeah.
understand,
Yes.
unless, but maybe nobody will complain about it, so.
I would just
Where's
say,
everyone gonna sleep?
if I could also, this is a much longer-term solution, but there are, I've had some discussions with people, and I know they've had discussions with others about things like west of the end of the divided highway, either in West Hampton or in Hampton Bays, the idea of creating some kind of transportation center that could have a carpool lot, maybe a bus depot, and make some of the eastbound lanes in the morning and westbound in the afternoon HOV for a portion. But that's obviously takes the kind of partnership Len's talking about with leadership and partnership with the town and the county and
And the
maybe the
state.
state. Yeah. But that, and even in a best case scenario, that's probably, that could be in our lifetimes, but it's not as quick as
The county has been reluctant to take the middle lane and
Yep.
turn that into an HOV
Yep.
in the morning and the evening, because it will hurt business.
Yep.
So, you know,
Turning in and out
everything,
of, yep.
everything has an implication.
Yeah.
And there are, trains and buses but they're not convenient enough for the employees, and so they're not taking them.
Just going to throw out a little bit of history for those who remember. Assemblyman Thiel, many, many years ago, long before people recognized there was a coming traffic crisis, had a proposal where the state and the county together were going to float a bond issue, or different portions of a bond issue, one to buy the land and one to build lockable warehouse space within an eighth of a mile of every train station from Southampton to Amagansett. Basically, and rent them at below market prices, $100 a month for a bay that could store 2 trucks and tools with parking for 5 or 6 fleet cars outside of it. The idea being put people onto trains and have them radiate out or even commute back west. There's still one big piece of land in Wainscott that's really attractive to me for something like that. But again, those are...
It's a little far if you're coming to Southampton.
It's actually,
park in
though,
Wainscott.
from Patchogue or even Manorville, it might be quicker to take a train to Wainscott and get on a truck and come back to
And
Southampton
drive the other
Village
direction, yeah,
than to try to hit the, who knows, anyway.
Well, there is some land, in the light industrial area at the northern border of the village, sort of along County Road 39, where we might be able to do something like that. I don't think it's within an eighth of a mile of the train station, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Proximity to train is an
Yeah,
important feature
yeah.
there.
Any other questions for Ryan? Or Ryan, did you want to add anything else? I mean, I think what we're going to do is we're going to wait for your full report from your firm. And again, I'm going to start putting up the signs that say no through traffic and see if we can get Waze and other apps to recognize those. And see if that has an effect on keeping people off some of these streets.
Hopefully, and develop a proposal that Romaine and Maria Moore can buy into.
Yeah, I mean, if they were to bring back the pilot that the town did up on County Road 39 back in, what was it, the end of April, beginning of May?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that could have a very positive effect, because if that traffic moves,
Yeah.
it's going to negate the reason for someone to come all the way south in the village.
Right.
Len, just remind me, they were going to maybe tweak a couple things, particularly in terms of some north-south access, maybe?
Yeah, and north of County Road 39 was a problem also, so we're going to bring that up with him when we talk to him. Putting a left-hand turn signal from McGee onto 39.
That would be huge.
Somehow would be a
Because
real
that would
big
get a
help.
lot of people out of the village to the north.
So we just have to
Yeah.
figure this out with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a couple other things I'll touch on real quick. if you
Sure,
don't mind.
absolutely, please.
So we put together a plan for Somerset and McGee to do.
Yeah, I have copies for everybody, because I did think this was something that the village board should consider moving ahead with. And we have money in the paving budget to do this. So this, we talked about, you have your copy here, sorry. Do you want to just explain exactly what it's going to do?
Sure. So on Halsey, there's already some temporary speed humps or tables that are in place, and this is kind of an intersection version of that, but a permanent application. So it'll be asphalt, and you'll ramp up as you approach the intersection.
But it's only,
after the
what,
stop
three or
sign.
4 inches?
It's 4 inches, yep. And then it's essentially a table, if you will, within the intersection. And then as you pull out, you go back down the ramp. And the intent is to slow vehicles as they're maneuvering through the intersection.
And it also is realigning, if I'm not mistaken, where the stop signs are, to make it a tighter controlled area.
It's tightening the geometry slightly of the intersection also to make it less comfortable to navigate through there faster.
So this should slow down people who, again, are trying to race from McGee onto Somerset, or race on McGee to go north to 39, because this, I've been at that corner, and no one observes the stop signs. They just all fly through it. Because
Right.
you can see that there are no cars really around, and they just whiz around there. And obviously, that's where we had an accident earlier this year.
Right.
It was a little further along on Somerset, but again, I think if we had everyone come to a complete stop here, because of the raised intersection, even the 4 inches will slow you down and stop you there. This would control the traffic speeds that we see at that intersection at this point.
And Ryan, this also, if I'm reading this correctly, has speed humps of 80 to 100 feet ahead of the table on each of the roads coming
So
into it?
those are warning
No,
signs.
those are warning
essentially,
signs.
Oh, those
for-
are warning
for
It's
signs.
just
I'm sorry.
because you have to
Okay.
give everyone a warning that
Yep,
there's.
got it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
But so, yeah, this is not going to solve the enforcement issue, so you would still be able to roll through this intersection and
But you're not going to be able to roll through it at 45 miles per
no,
hour.
and I was going to say, in fact, these can be used at uncontrolled intersections, so you don't have to have a stop sign or a signal to incorporate these. But the intent is, to your point, to kind of slow people down as they're going through the intersection. So as they're heading up towards 39 or going down towards Bishops,
Yeah.
they can't go at a higher rate of speed through there.
Well, you had also proposed one of these at the end of West Prospect, where everyone turns onto Pelham.
Yes.
And again, it's another corner where everyone just whizzes around that corner right near the water tower,
Right.
with no regard for anything, because they're trying to race west to get out of the village. And so I would like to try this one at Somerset and McGee, and then if that is effective, we might also put it at the end of West Prospect Street at Pelham, so that, again, we control the people making that turn, because I've spoken to enough people on West Prospect Street who also have a similar situation to what the Lee Avenue people are experiencing, with people just all heading west
Yep.
on West Prospect at the end of the day and making that turn right before the water tower, and then weaving their way, what is it, on Moses and the other roads
Yeah,
to,
Pelham and Moses,
yeah, to get back out to 39.
Yeah.
And they probably gain about 5 minutes for not staying on 39.
Right.
But so, anyway, I think this is something that that we should implement this first speed table at Somerset and McGee, so that we can again control that intersection better, and then again, if it's very successful, we might look to do it, like I said, on West Prospect.
The material is what? I mean, it takes
It's-
snow removal and
Yep,
ice.
it's asphalt.
It's asphalt.
Yep, so it's essentially like a permanent speed table. So this will kind of, if the village is agreeable to implementing this and incorporating it, would be a good demonstration project to show not only what other potential raised intersections in the village could look like, but what a permanent speed table would be.
Salting and
more-
sanding is typical for these.
Yes, yep, yeah, they're used in all types of climates.
Well, and the
So
incline is graduate. I mean, and to the 4 inches. So you
It's 4 inches over 6 feet. It
Right,
is,
it's four- yeah.
it's not a linear ramp, it's parabolic, so your first couple feet,
That word,
it
I'm
pops.
getting shades of high school.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I did too much math. Yeah, no, but the intent is to really give you a little bump as you first hit it,
Right.
without causing any issue. It does slow down everybody, so emergency responses, this is just
Right.
something that we'll have to coordinate with
right.
as we
Right.
look at these, if we continue to.
But there are many
forward.
municipalities that have these.
Yes.
Yeah. And anyone who drives through Sagaponack knows that Mayor Tillotson has gone crazy with speed humps in Sagaponack. But anyway, you wanted to talk about, other uses of this?
No, I think, you talked about West Prospect and Prospect, not at intersections so much, but.
No, I also meant in
incorporating-
other municipalities where
Oh.
they've been implemented.
Yeah, so I think in Sag Harbor, they've also incorporated these, and there's other villages and towns to the west of us that have also used these. They're widely used throughout Long Island, especially in residential
Control
areas,
speed.
to control speed.
Yeah.
And they're more effective, and you don't need the enforcement instead of doing like stop signs everywhere, which is hard to enforce. And from a traffic perspective, it's not as safe because you have people that still may blow the stop sign.
But this
and
already
not-
has the stop signs, and no one's
Correct.
observing them.
Right.
That's the
So
problem.
this is helping to slow down the traffic through the intersection, which is what you want.
Yeah.
Is this just laying asphalt on the existing bed, or is there prep and reconstruction and regrading needed to make
There's
this
some
work?
regrading because it has, why don't you explain it? Because you're
There's
more of an
regrading
engineer than I
because
am.
not all the time, but you can be interrupting the flow lines and how the water flows off the road. So we did actually a survey of the intersection to make sure we weren't going to create any issues. We put some grading on this plan that's in front of you, and yeah, it's really just you're milling out the top inch of pavement, which is like a finer your riding course, and then you're putting in a thicker layer of the structural asphalt and then a new riding course on top.
Any rough order of magnitude on what something like this would cost?
Um,
Or
I
not?
think it's just north of 50,000.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there, if we put in a few of these, or even with the speed tables, they're, in the $10,000 to $15,000 range typically for a permanent one. There's funding sources out there to do these type of safety improvements, either locally or through the federal government. And,
For the
if
state.
we're serious in doing that, that's something that I think the village can look at to find ways to fund some of these improvements.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, anyway, I just want to bring that up. But were there any other?
Can I just bring it back to Lee
Oh,
and
sorry.
Captain's Neck?
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, you've got data. It's July 22nd. If you take another month to look at the data, the problem's going to be over anyway. Are you going to look at the data soon enough that we can make a decision whether or not to have no turns on Lee and Captain's Neck? Because there's 17 letters here with people saying extremely concerned that they've got a bad situation. There's a whole group of people here in the room. I guarantee you there's more than that. And like I said, if we just sit around and look at the data for a month, summer's over anyway. So
But hang on though, Roy. You can't just, what are you gonna do? Just implement it? You need to
we
have
just
a
closed
public.
Ox Pasture.
No, you
We
need,
just closed Ox Pasture, Eileen, okay? It was done within about a week to close Ox
it
Pasture.
was on a pilot program.
Okay, so why don't we have another
You
pilot
can't
program?
we can't repeat your pilot programs. They're no longer pilot programs when you do that. You'd have
Okay.
to do a new pilot program.
Seems to me 3 years ago, we closed Somerset with a concrete block that somehow was in never came before the board, nobody ever discussed it. All of a sudden, suddenly there was a concrete block across Somerset. That was never a discussion at all of the board, Eileen. You weren't here, but I was. And now you're telling me we can't say no right turns?
I'll tell you what the
Or
law
not.
is.
Left.
Okay,
Do what you want.
all right,
You're the board.
yeah.
But the
Well,
law
we're trying to
says-
do what you want, because you said that we can't just put it on the
Correct, you
police
need to
chief,
have a
so we
public
have to
hearing
do
and-
something.
and
I'm
to-
saying, does this board have the will to do something like this, or not? Or are we just gonna study it some more?
It's not about studying it. You can make a decision, but you have to have a public hearing and change the code and
Okay.
implement this.
All right.
That's how it works.
So that's gonna take some time.
It is.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Yes.
And we want to make sure that we're providing a recommendation that's adequate based on the information and feedback
Got it.
we got from the data on that study.
But I want the people, these 17 people, these people to understand what's happening, not just, which is what it sort of sounded like to me. So we need to, do we need to
What do you mean it
study?
sounded like it? This is the law. I've said it to you guys, that this is what you need to do. You
Well,
need
no,
to
and,
adopt it
and,
by
and,
code.
and Ryan did tell me that he didn't have the full report finished yet, but I'm hoping you'll have it done, in the next week?
Yeah, we just got the data last week, so
Okay.
we're still finalizing our
And we have a
recommendations.
traffic committee which consists of well over 20 residents, and we will disseminate
I'm not being
the
critical,
data.
but to these people, this is an emergency. You might say we're not allowed to call it an emergency, but it is an emergency.
I get that. I get that, Roy, but, you're the board. I'm just giving you telling you what the law says. I appreciate why you don't like it, but
I get we gotta follow the law.
you do.
I get it.
So we could.
But in the meantime, I'm putting up the no through traffic signs.
Right.
He's going on Thursday to talk to McCardle about bringing back the permanent pilot or making it permanent, not a pilot anymore, on County Road 39. So I feel like we're trying to do different things. I understand it's not as fast as people would like us to do, but I feel like we're trying here.
I just want it out on the table that we understand it's a problem, we understand it's very serious, we're
Yeah.
trying to do as much as we can. and we're looking at all the options, and it's not simple.
It's not simple.
You know, as you pointed out to me, you and I have discussed this, as we focus our enforcement efforts on the western part of the village, we only have so many people in our police force, and we have the
Yep.
other side of the village as well.
Yep.
So I get it totally.
Yeah, because we have people who are speeding on the east side of the village,
Right.
and we're not being able to capture those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, yeah. That's a
Brian,
problem.
good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Glenn, is there any possibility they would, with a couple of tweaks, they could do a different pilot program, that they could come back with another pilot program in August to speed up traffic? Do you think that's at all a possibility?
I'll ask. I know that the original cost estimate of the pilot in April and May was way overstated. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, it didn't cost them as much as the police chief said for the town. I think he had estimated 70,000 in overtime, et cetera, costs, and I think it came in like around 20.
Okay.
So, you know, it shouldn't be a money problem. It should be a real
Will.
public safety and quality of life solution.
Thanks.
But I can ask that question.
Yeah, it just feels like,
Yeah,
because the
absolutely.
labor issues will take some time to work through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, and I think
Maybe-
McConnell wants to do it, but the town board has to go ahead, I mean, give their go-ahead and
It's a
approve it.
political issue, is what
Yeah.
it is.
I understand.
All right, any other final comments from Ryan?
No, those are the big things. Just I'll mention the raised median at Railroad Plaza. We're also talking about trying to do some improvements over there.
Right, to try and slow
control
down the
a
traffic
little
there,
bit.
because the people that whiz through by the railroad
By the
is
train.
Could we
just
raise
out
the
of control.
the crosswalk there? What about raising the crosswalk right in the middle of the station with a ramp on either side?
That would be like a speed hump.
Yeah, I mean,
speed
that's,
hump.
it's possible. We haven't looked at that, but it's something we could consider. It's a little tricky over there because you have a lot of kiss and ride and, your Uber and Lyft vehicles there, but we can consider that. And then the traffic signal at Hampton and Main, and looking at just doing some pedestrian safety improvements there also. I think once that road gets repaved, we'll have some more options to manipulate the traffic signal and try and,
You mean the main intersection here at,
yeah, by Golden Pear.
Yeah.
And try and add some pedestrian-only phase to see if that helps with some of the conflicts that are going on there.
yeah. So that's helpful as well.
There's another traffic issue
ahead.
that's been brought up to me by several residents, and it happened a little bit last summer. It's happening a lot more this summer, which is U-turns by eastbound traffic at Hill Street at the new traffic island through both the end at First Neck and the intermediate break at the end of Radian Way. Lots and lots, and not only obviously a safety issue with cars coming the other way, but in most cases, unless you're a tiny little car, people actually have to do 3-point turns to make that. So it really clogs up traffic. There's a crosswalk nearby. Can we get some no U-turn signs? I hate to have more signs, but it feels like that's been a big issue this summer.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
You-
Or can we put in a rotary, a roundabout, like we maybe?
It's not enough room. We looked at that. It's not enough
Okay.
room. Yeah.
All right. All right.
the no U-turn
Big
signs we can
decisions,
look at
thanks.
and see. I want to say there may already be a restriction there. Maybe it just needs to be signed a little more, but
We removed one of the arrows. The arrows are a bit confusing, and the arrows don't indicate. To me, right now, there's nothing that indicates no U-turns through either of those
Okay.
openings.
all right, we'll look at it. But I don't see a reason why we couldn't add a sign there too if it's an issue.
All right, that's helpful. Anything else? This topic? All right. All right, well, thank you, Ryan, very much for being here.
Thanks,
I
Ryan.
appreciate
Thanks a lot,
it.
everyone.
And we're hoping that you'll be able to get us that report as soon as possible.
Yes, I understand the urgency.
Yeah.
We'll work to get that quickly.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. The next discussion item we will have is on the rental restrictions. Eileen, do you want to just explain a little bit about the rental restrictions?
Sure. So we don't have a rental permit code in the village.
And I think almost every other municipality out here does.
Yes. So there is no, look, these are single-family homes. They really shouldn't be being used as hotels anyway, but the truth is they are. So the mayor wanted to consider putting in some additional rental restrictions without going the full extent and doing a whole permit code, right?
Right.
So-
I mean, I've been getting complaints from a few people on, I believe it was Pulaski and Pelletreau, where they said they are living virtually next to a weekend house
Right.
party.
A
And
hotel
it's
area,
different
yeah.
people every weekend, and it's Airbnb or VBRO. And they said they really are sick of calling the police every weekend because these young people are partying until the wee hours of the morning.
So this is just a very basic code that just adds in some additional restrictions, minimum 2-week rentals, et cetera, going to be very, very difficult.
I'm sorry, I'm just finding this
Yeah.
very distracting. Excuse me,
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind, thanks. I'm just having a hard time.
It's okay.
Yep.
Just so it would limit the rentals to, minimum 14 days. There is something in that says twice a year you can do a 1-week rental at your property, et cetera.
But basically, you can't do a weekend.
This would prevent you from doing it. How we're going to know who's doing rentals and how we're going to prove it is another issue.
That's more challenging. I believe.
I saw
Very
something
challenging.
recently that the Verbos and the Airbnbs have to now report something to the state, or did I
Well,
just
they're
see that
supposed to
recently?
pay occupancy tax, et
Right.
cetera. So in other parts of the country, they've been very successful in, doing that. But we don't even have a rental code here. So without a rental permit.
We have no
and a-
restrictions at all.
Yeah,
Whereas,
without a,
literally, we looked at every other East End community, and they all have something. So I said,
this is very, very difficult to enforce. So and that's why these rental permit codes are becoming more and more complicated, because they're building in presumptions, et cetera. But it's very, very difficult because you can't go into somebody's house, no matter what. So you're just sort of, basing it on more objective evidence that you see from outside, but they're very difficult. So if somebody wants to be a bad,
But you told me when you were at the town years ago, you used to try and enforce the multiple
we did.
occupants in the house or whatever.
Yeah,
you
when I
call it.
first went there, Southampton town was having
You
a
can't
big
make-
problem with prom
You can't
houses.
make Airbnb and Vrbo provide their contracts to you, to the?
No, under what theory? Those are
Like
private
sales tax or
contracts.
something?
Under what?
Sales tax, or, see-
Yeah, but you need a whole code for that. We could do a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
Roy. I mean, you just go look at what other municipalities have, and you'll see they add, they amend it. Every time they get a bad actor and they try
Yeah.
to figure out a way to address that
I was trying
person,
to
they
copy
make it
East
new
Hampton and
rules.
not be too onerous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do something that at least, the police could have a conversation with the owners and say,
Correct.
you're not really supposed to be doing this, you gotta stop this.
So if you have a good rental code, you can, and you have a code enforcement dedicated to it, you can make a difference and stop some of this over, 2 nights and 3-night rentals, which is essentially turning your house into a motel,
I agree.
which is not
No,
contemplated in
I
a
think
single
it's
family.
great. I just am concerned that your point that it's not enforceable. I'm trying to say, is there anything we can add to it to make it more?
Yeah, we could do an entire code
Ah.
if you want to. Then
Right.
everybody who rents their house has to go and get a rental permit.
See, I think that's gonna
Yeah.
drive a few people a little crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how big a problem it is within the village, and do you want to do that?
It depends on the owner. So I had, neighbors who were not considerate, and they would rent out their house every weekend, and it was really annoying. It was very loud.
And that's what's happened in the people that have complained to me.
Yeah, and you call the police department, and they really can't do anything.
Correct.
It's a house party. People are being loud. It's not a crime.
Right. And you can't prove it's a rental.
Right.
People, even though they'll say the neighbors will report it, the neighbors are just going to say, I saw different people there.
Yeah.
That's not proof for a court
No,
of,
it's,
who's staying and living in the house.
This is a good
They
beginning.
can claim they're
Correct.
just house guests.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very, very
This is
difficult.
a good quality
Is
of
the
life beginning.
noise, can we capture some of this through more enforcement or steeper fines on noise ordinances and
Those are
amplified music?
notoriously difficult.
Those are very difficult, let me tell you, yes, not
You
easy.
need
Well, we
special
have the 11
equipment that's
PM
very expensive.
restriction.
Yeah,
Not
we
that
have-
we don't
we
have
have-
it, but.
Yeah.
And amplified music outdoors.
Yeah, that
right?
one we
That
have
we
it stopped at
enforce.
11
Yeah,
o'clock.
11 o'clock.
But what I've heard is that it's the people just out in the yard until 2 in the morning talking and laughing and, having a great time, and just that noise. It doesn't even have to be music.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who Airbnb their house and nobody cares because the people they have in there are polite
Yeah.
and don't bother anybody, and there's no noise, and they come and go like a regular resident. Nobody cares. Nobody knows.
Can
nobody
we
looks
add a
into it.
layer to our code on noise ordinances that says after 11 or 12 p.m.?
We have a
No,
lot of that in there. We have all that in there.
no, but
noise.
saying basically no noise that's audible at all from the property line.
People
I think
don't want to
that's-
cut down
that's a-
trees in the setback. You think people are going to accept that?
Yeah, after midnight, sure.
I think that's going to be very difficult, Rob.
Okay.
I appreciate what you're saying, but I think that's going to be very difficult. I was just trying to put something in there so we have something on the books to try and control weekend rentals,
Yeah.
because that seems to be what the problem is.
It's a good first step, absolutely.
And you might be able to enforce it. You will be able to enforce
Yeah.
it
As long
somewhat.
as
I'm
you've
just
got
saying it's
sort of
not going
some
to be.
things in there, like a couple of times you can do it for a week or so, because like,
No, you can.
I met with the USGA guys about next year's US Open, and a lot of people are gonna wanna rent their houses.
Right,
to prepare for
exactly.
the US Open.
So that's why we
That's
have,
only a
we have
week.
the
Yeah.
exception for 2 one-week periods in any 12 months. Yeah. So I think it's really copied from East Hampton, right?
Yeah.
East Hampton
And-
Village.
And I spoke to the mayor
I
of
don't know
East
if you
Hampton,
copied
and
it
he
from
said,
that.
actually, it
Everybody has
works
a
very
version.
well. And he said,
Yeah.
seriously, when they've had a problem, the police just call the owner and say, we're on to you, what's going on there? You
Right.
better knock it off.
Right.
And they said most people actually are trying to comply.
Well, most people can follow the law,
Yeah.
but there's enough bad actors. There's a lot of money at stake here, so,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean,
Also pretty traditional that in the village, people in the summertime will rent out their homes.
Oh, definitely.
So that,
But not usually for a weekend only.
usually for the month.
Yeah,
or-
which is
or
fine.
couple
2
days,
weeks, 2
yeah.
weeks is fine, and that's all allowed. Yeah.
But I don't think you should put a restriction on the 14 days though. I mean, if you're trying to restrict the weekends, why are you worried about 14-day rentals?
no, he's saying it's got to be a minimum of
It has
14 days.
a minimum of 14 days, so that it's not just a weekend.
You have to
You have to
rent
be
for
there,
at
you
least
have,
14 days.
which is what a lot of people do, because as you may know, you can rent your place up to 2 weeks and it's tax-free.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of people want to do that. So that's why I said you should
Yeah.
allow everyone to be able to rent it
Why
for
would you limit it to 2 times?
2 times, for only 1 week. For only 1 week, because we're trying
Oh.
not to have more people do a lot of 1-week rentals, because that's going to be the same as the weekends. We're saying you can do it 2 one-week rentals in the year, but that's the maximum you can do of only a 1-week rental.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That makes sense.
Yeah, you're never going to enforce that.
Well, I know, but as I said, I spoke to the mayor in East Hampton. He said actually they've been actually pretty successful with this. He said it's really helped them, and he said they used to have a problem, and they said Amagansett really had a problem, but apparently.
Now, how prevalent is the problem in the village though? I mean, it's not that prevalent, right?
Well, I've heard it from, as I said, people that are on Pulaski and Pelletreau, and then Rob,
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, it
Len
depends on-
told me that they had someone across the
I
street
think-
from him.
Maybe
depends
it's
on the
3-4
owner.
Maybe
Yep.
it's 3-4 homes
My-
that are really creating the
my
problem.
I don't know about that, because actually, when I was going door to door in the election, Ed, I can't tell you how many people said, we're just
We're
renting this
renting,
house.
yeah.
We're only here for the weekend. I got that a lot. And
But
I
the-
said, oh, the owner's not here. They said, oh, no, we're just here.
But there are
And it was
ways to
usually
market.
mostly younger folks, in the house, yeah.
There are ways to market on both of those platforms, Airbnb and VRBO, that seem to attract noisier crowds with maybe less scrupulous landlords. Maybe the condition of the house isn't as good as some others. And, I hear your point, Ed, how prevalent is it? Honestly, if there are only 3 or 4, but every weekend for 30 weeks a year, there was a different group in there that was being very noisy, and we live next
You
to
can
one, it would be a
attest to
big
it.
quality of life issue.
Terrible.
So, I see the point in it. I'm concerned about the burden. I'm concerned about
Well,
the
that's why I'm trying to make it.
enforceability.
That's why I'm trying to make it not so burdensome.
Yeah.
Because, like Eileen said, you can add lots of layers of
And
restrictions,
this wouldn't
but
be
I
any kind
don't
of
want to do that.
registry at all.
No,
We're
no,
not going to
no.
register and take names. The town got into trouble
No,
on Noyak
no.
Road on that. There
No,
has
we
to
do
be.
have a seasonal use registry, but that's for the purposes of.
Taxes.
Of the, New York State. No, it wasn't
No,
for taxes.
no
It-
purposes of how you get paid.
Right, if you, because under New York State
Right,
law,
right,
you can no
right, right,
longer accept money for more than 30 days of rent in advance. Of course, these summer rentals want all the money up front, otherwise they'll never
That
see
was
it.
started during COVID,
Right.
and then Assemblyman Thiel realized there was a problem on the east end of Long Island, so he changed the law to say that if you register, you can collect the full amount in advance. as opposed to month. Yeah.
Right.
So in case you're curious, we have only 17 homes that
That have signed up.
registered on
Yeah.
the seasonal rental. So they're either not collecting or not worried about that state law.
Well, that registry required compliance, obviously, with certain code issues, and when the fire happened on Noyak Road,
Right.
because there hadn't been any good faith attempt to really enforce across the board, the town got sued along with the homeowner.
Oh, is that right? No, so in the town, they have a rental permit, and they didn't have a rental permit, I don't believe. Isn't that what happened?
Yes, they didn't have a rental permit, that's
Right.
correct.
So they had the Southampton town has a thorough rental code.
Yeah.
These people didn't bother to get a rental permit, which would have necessitated a safety inspection,
Right.
if not by somebody from the town, at least by a licensed or professional, in order to get past the permitting process, so.
But I think it'd be good to try this small step first to see if that helps the situation. Because I do have a couple of people who have emailed me about this.
Sure.
And that's,
Again, the issue is enforcement.
Yeah.
So I personally, I am not in favor of putting restrictions on rentals and whatnot. But the big issue, I think, is the enforcement. I mean,
Right.
if you can't enforce it,
right.
I'm not saying you can never enforce it, I'm just saying it's based on my experience, and it's
Yeah,
gonna be
it's gonna
very
be
difficult without a more thorough
of course.
code. We don't have any presumptions here, we don't have anything to use to help us to
Could-
enforce it.
Okay.
I know that, there's a lot of records kept by the police or code enforcement. Could we start to keep a log of complaints that we believe or know, but probably in most cases believe are related to rentals? Is there
Sure.
is
And
there one
so right-
centralized place to do that?
Yeah, so right now, there's nothing obvious other than the single-family home, but you can rent your single-family home, that doesn't help you, so we don't have any restrictions. So one of the ways the other municipalities do it is, they have this rental code, you have to get the permit, you have to do everything, and the way they enforce it is, they get the complaints, they put together a package, and they go to a judge and get a search warrant. And they show up there at 7 in the morning when everyone's home from whatever, the Bordy Barn or wherever they go, and I'm
That's
dating
dating you.
myself, sorry, Bill. And they go in and they take names and they bring a Supreme Court action, and that's how you shut it down. I mean, that's how we did it when I was at the town, all the problems they were having with the prom houses.
Yeah.
We went down and shut down the prom houses by showing up with a search warrant at 7 in the morning, but you don't want to be
I don't want to
doing
have to do all that.
search
Yeah, yeah.
warrants.
No,
I
and
really
they
don't
don't
want to
look
do
at-
all
I
that.
don't want to,
I just
Especially if
want-
it's not a problem.
No, but I think we should try
But
something.
that is the
so
only
that-
purpose of that.
especially
Yeah.
if it's not endemic, if
Right,
it's not all
exactly,
over them.
yeah.
If it's just a few cases, I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
You might
Well,
do it if it was.
If anyone's watching this live, or if anyone is watching this after the fact, before our next meeting, if you have strong feelings on this, and particularly if you've got what you think is a bad neighbor doing some of this stuff behind you, we don't need to know
can
names.
turn
I
your
just
people
want to
in.
understand the scope of
Sure,
it. So I'd invite people to email
Would
us
it be
or.
easier instead to identify the homes and just speak to the owners and let them know that maybe they don't know there's a problem because they're not there? And maybe just speak to the owners and see what they have to say. And maybe they'll be more careful of who they're renting to, if they're aware of what's going on.
I think that's a nice idea. But I honestly think
Doesn't hurt.
we have to have something that we say, you're not allowed to rent just for the weekend, that you cannot do this. Otherwise,
You could say.
they're gonna just say, oh, I've got really nice people coming in. You know what they do. They have one nice guy, like Len, who says, I'd like to rent the
Well,
house. And then they
Airbnb,
bring in,
It's all done on the computer.
they bring in,
They
exactly.
never see them.
Yeah, well, but Len can say, I'm renting this just for myself, and then he brings in 20 of his friends. Anyway, all right. I think that's enough on that topic. I'd like to put it on for a public hearing in August, and when we can hear from the public if they have comments about it. Building fees. This was something that was brought to my attention by the building inspector, Christopher Talbot, and he said that he thinks that our fees for swimming pools and accessory structures is not competitive with what we are now seeing in the village. So, for example, he wants to go from a set fee for the swimming pools. It's at $600. Any pool, no matter what size, what shape, what cost, it's just a flat fee of $600. He said he thinks we should do it as a multiple of the cost of the pool. So 1.5% times the expected cost of the swimming pool. So where we are right now at $600, that means your pool would cost $40,000. So if you have a pool that costs $40,000, it's $600. But today, from what I understand, pools cost more than $40,000, and the fee should be increased so that, you know, we're collecting something more commensurate, he said, with the size and scale and scope of some of the pools that are being built. You know,
And the review that he has to,
and the review does.
has to make, yeah.
So the other point that he made, and again, it's only two parts of the code that he wanted us to address. The other part was, for accessory structures, we do a flat fee of $1 per square foot. So, for example, someone, you know, on 3 acres builds a pool house that's 800 square feet, they're paying $800, and that's what they get. He said some of these pool houses are as elaborate as someone's primary home and is very involved with plumbing and all sorts of stuff. And so he said he thinks, again, we should apply the same ratio, if you will, to accessory structures that we do for other structures. So 1.5%. So again, if the cost of the pool house is $100,000, you know, or $200,000, $300,000, you pay 1.5% of that as the building fee. And that's how we do it actually with primary structures. So he's just saying, why are accessory structures treated that they're only $1 a square foot? He said, you know, in today's world, you know, people are not just building, you know, a shell that maybe $800 made sense, but he said they're building very detailed, complicated, complex structures. And so
Can't build a dollhouse in my store for $1 a square foot.
there you go. So he just said that this is not keeping pace with what the work that they're doing. So he suggested that pools and accessory structures just have a flat fee of 1.5% times the cost of construction, which seemed reasonable. And again, we looked at it from a standpoint of the budget, and it looks like, you know, we're not going to lose money. You know, even again, if somebody did build a $40,000 swimming pool, we would still collect the $600. So that's another item that was on it.
I think it's a great idea. I'm glad Chris is looking out for stuff like that.
Yeah, Chris brought this to my attention. I didn't even think about it. Chris said, you know, I really want to talk to you about the fees because I think this is not keeping up with what we're doing here. So that I would also like to put on for a notice of public hearing, and in August we can have people come to the meeting and discuss whether they like it, don't like it, or have comments.
Yeah, my understanding is that what Chris really wanted to do was just to uniform and make it easier to follow everything at 1.5%.
Right.
But, you know, I may raise another issue on this because building fees really should, I believe by New York State law, really should reflect recovery of cost.
That's right.
And not profit making.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing here, I think it looks more like profit making.
How is it profit making if someone is building a $250,000 pool and we're charging $600 and it takes that much more time for him to go and
It's not going to take that much more time.
It does. I know a pool that was just put in near me that took months during the winter to be installed. Months. Do you know how many times he had to go down there to inspect it? And you get $600?
So
Yeah,
how
that's
does
insane.
that change with the pool?
It changes because, again, if it's a project that is taking months and multiple visits to that site to look at the work that's being done on that pool, $600 is not sufficient to cover the cost of the village. That means every other taxpayer is actually augmenting the cost of the building inspector because we only want to charge the applicant who's actually building the structure $600.
Oh, I can't.
Okay, we just disagree.
I can't accept that
We-
argument because
Okay.
you're putting on a value, and the value, by putting on the value, is going to be beyond the actual cost of the building fees, the building cost. I mean, I don't see that. I mean, I think you may want to have to look at the whole structure there because it can't be that much more for a building inspector to go and inspect a home whether it's a $1 million home or a $10 million home.
Yes, there is, actually. And if you'd like, I should have had
Not at
Chris stay here. I
1.5%.
should have had Chris stay here to explain it to you, Ed.
Right.
When was the last time you did building inspections?
When my house was built,
Okay, so obviously, how many times did they have to come and look at your structure?
once,
Okay, well, that's not what Chris does.
once. They
What
came
year was
once,
that?
when they came to check everything.
All right, well, I can assure you that I've actually gone on the road with
And
Chris.
Chris Talbot was there too.
Okay, I've been on the road with Chris Talbot. In fact, he took me to inspection just this week. I don't know when you last went on an inspection with Mr. Talbot, but I went with him this week, and we were actually looking at the site plan, at the grading on the property.
All right.
There's much more involved than just building the structure. There was a huge project to grade the property that he had to go inspect.
Okay, so.
I don't understand.
So you collect $300,000 in fees from a house. Does it cost $300,000 for the inspector to go there?
Again,
Even multiple
I don't know
times?
what-
I mean.
Yeah, I think you have to
gotta
look,
watch
it's
out when
not,
you're
it's,
looking
you have
at
to look
this.
at the bigger picture of operating the building department too. It's not just like one portion of it. It's the entire building department. Chris doesn't operate in a vacuum. He has staff that has to assist him with what he does, so it's more than just one salary, if that's what you're
Right,
getting
of
at.
course, but
Okay.
I think by changing this to a percentage, I don't know, it may not be the proper way of doing it, that's all.
Okay.
I guess
Thank
the-
you.
the
One other
coun-
thing-
the counter argument is if $600 is the right number, or is it the wrong number? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, you're supposed to.
Everything is very
You're supposed
subjective.
to actually do a study.
No, I
on
know,
where
I
it-
understand, believe me, I got it, I
Yeah.
understand how
Yeah,
fees work.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's actually a process
But-
Yes.
but-
to
but-
figure out what the cost is.
Yeah, but to Eileen's point, we're paying for Alex Wallach, we're paying for 2 women who sit at the front desk and deal with the people when they come into the front counter. We have actually 2 other building inspectors aside from Chris.
Code
We have
enforcement.
code enforcement, who
Fire-
works out of that office.
fire marshal.
And then we have the fire marshal, who comes into play when he goes to review, for fire situations. So, as Eileen was saying, this is not a one-man band.
No, I understand.
It's a whole operation going on there.
But there's supposed to be a process then to figure
Yeah,
out
okay.
what the cost is and how to recover it.
Well, I think Chris has gone through the process, and this is his recommendation.
Chris has been here as the building inspector for the last 25 years, with a brief hiatus in Sag Harbor. I think he knows the way the building office works. He's also worked in another municipality.
So on this,
Any idea
I
how
mean,
this
you
does
know.
compare with other municipalities?
The 1.5% is not unusual.
So anyway, I appreciate your point of view, Ed. I just disagree with it.
according to this reasonable relationship, whatever, of providing the service, does that mean that effectively, when you load in the fire marshal and the building inspectors, code enforcement, and everyone who works in the office, that the cost of that whole operation should be roughly equivalent to the revenue that's
I've
generated out
never
of that
really
department?
studied it, Rob, so I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
I think generally
I mean, if you look
speaking,
at,
the statement he made is true, that it's supposed to not be a profit-making
It's supposed to be a
enterprise
reasonable
zone.
relationship, I
Yeah,
think.
there are
Yes,
reasonable
yes.
And
relationships.
if
Same
you look
with
at the
police
area-
costs for
Yeah.
things.
yeah, and if you look at the budget, I think that we're recovering in building fees more than we budget for the cost of the department. So obviously, there's not,
That-
it's
that-
not quite in sync.
That works when the economy is doing very well. That's correct, Ed. And when the economy does not do well, it reverses.
Yeah, but if you have a fixed cost, then maybe you cover it. I don't
All right.
know.
You're just
you know
gonna
what?
drive up, costs in other areas, taxes for other people then, but. Just the other comment I was gonna make, just to point out that we've made it so that we can do this by resolution in the future.
Which is much better
Yeah,
than
which
having to have
we've-
public hearings. But
we've
we
been
will have a
doing
public
it,
hearing on
yeah.
this next month. Okay, we went through, did we go through correspondence?
No, we.
Sorry.
You didn't, not gonna do helicopter?
That's it, that's a resolution.
Oh, okay.
Because it
I thought it was
could be done by
discussion.
resolution. No. Okay, go ahead, please.
We have correspondence. We have, the following people have actually written us with reference to the closure of the ox pasture pilot, and they were very much in favor of it, and also would call for an extension. And that is from Jessica Mezzacapa, Isabel and Alex Legal, Cornelia Erklentz, Tori Birch, Steve Markov and Jeff Molesky, who wrote in favor of it, and also in support of a no left-hand turn from Lee Avenue. We have William and Laura McClanahan, who had also advocated for no left turn. Lauren Santo Domingo, no left-hand turn. We have, sorry.
Jeffrey and Julie Loria.
Let me just get to the page here. Okay, we have, Jeffrey and Julie Loria, no left-hand turn. Sebastian and Isabel von Ribbentrop. I'm going to just read the names because they're all, these are all people who had indicated that they would not, they want to see no left-hand turn. That would be, again, Sebastian and Isabel von Ribbentrop, Alexander and Barbara Tisch, Cornelia Erklintz,
Yeah.
Sharon Denner, Mai Hallenby, Isabel Legal, Jessica Mezzacapa, Barbara McEntee, Esther and Eduardo Gaffron. All, again, in support of no left-hand turn.
Okay.
And that concludes the correspondence I have.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so why don't we go to suggested resolutions?
Number 1, resolve the claims for the warrant dated July 22, 2025, totaling $228,562.73. Warrant number A6 General, $191,144. Warrant number H2 Capital, $2,324.77. Warrant number A5 Payables, and $670.79. Warrant number T3 Trust are audited and approved, and I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I just had a discussion, if I could. There were just a few items on here I couldn't recognize. And Len, I don't know if you know, or I see on page 48, ICC Community Development Solutions, 17,000. Does anyone know what that's for?
What is the number?
It's on page 48 of 58, down at the lower right-hand corner. It's item number 6336, vendor ID number, 17,404, sort of middle of the page.
What's the name of the company?
ICC Community Development Solutions. I don't know that one off the top of my head, but would have to ask the treasurer.
Okay. The other two are really just on the following page. Lexapol.
That's with the police department.
Lexapol is the
please.
company that's helping to redo the police procedures.
Okay,
Yeah.
et cetera.
that's great.
Yep.
And then Meyer Swazi, English and Klein, PC. Is that a law firm or?
Yeah, Meyer
I was gonna
Swazi is
ask
a
about
law
that as
firm.
well.
It may be an assessment refund or something. I don't know. They do a lot of
Okay.
assessment work in the village. I'm not
Yeah,
sure what it
yeah.
is because I didn't see the bill, but
I don't know what it is either.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to hold this up. I wanted to ask if anyone knew on the record. Will speak with the treasurer, find out more about ICC.
Yeah.
So thank you for the discussion.
Yeah.
Thanks.
did you vote, Bill?
Oh, sorry. No, we didn't vote yet. We just had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Number 2, resolve the reading of the minutes for the July 7th and 10th, 2025 Board of Trustee meetings are dispensed, accepted as filed by the village clerk, and are hereby ratified and approved, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton has determined that this proposed local law is considered an unlisted action under 6 NYCRR Part 617.4 provisions of the New York State Environmental Quality Review (SECRA) Act. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby assumes lead agency status as there are no other involved agencies, and be it further resolved that the Village Board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held as a hybrid in-person/Zoom meeting on August 14th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room at the Southampton Village Hall, located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed local law entitled a local law amending zoning code chapters 116-2B, words defined, 116-23B, special conditions and safeguards for certain uses, list of uses, and 116-17, minimum residential floor area of the Village Code of Southampton, by adding language creating special exception uses and special conditions for workforce housing, live-work units, and new single-family detached dwellings in the HRO and OD zoning districts in the Village of Southampton, and updating the related use charts accordingly. I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton has determined that this proposed local law is considered a Type 2 action under 6 New York CRR Part 617.5 provisions of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and that no further review under New York Environmental Conservation Law Article 8 is necessary. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board hereby directs the public hearing shall be held as a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on August 14, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room at the Southampton Village Hall located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 89 Seasonal Use Rentals of the Village Code of Southampton by adding additional rental restrictions. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Number 5, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Southampton has determined that this proposed local law is considered a Type 2 action under 6 NYC-RR Part 617.5 provisions of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and that no further review under New York Environmental Conservation Law Article 8 is necessary. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Board hereby directs that a public hearing be held as a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on August 14, 2025 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room at Southampton Village Hall located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against the proposed local law entitled A Local Law Amending Appendix A 119-2 Fees of the Village Code of Southampton by amending certain building fee amounts calculations. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Eduardo?
Whereas the village heliport was previously designated by the Village Board of Trustees as an authorized location for the landing of helicopters, and whereas Chapter 39-5 of the Southampton Village Code governs and regulates use of the village heliport located on the north side of Meadow Lane, and whereas the landing fees for the village heliport initially set forth in 39-5D have not been updated since February 2022, and whereas 39-5D5 authorized the village board to amend the landing fees by resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that effective July 24th, 2025, the landing fees for the village heliport shall be set as follows. For helicopters weighing up to 5,000 pounds, the fee shall be $150 per landing. 2, 5,000 pounds to 9,999 pounds, the fee shall be $250 per landing. 3, 10,000 pounds to 15,000 pounds, the fee shall be $400 per landing. I make the motion.
I'll second. Discussion. So this was done after I inquired with Scott Russell, the administrator of the third party that handles the billing for helicopter landings at our heliport on Meadow Lane, and I asked for a comparison to neighboring airports and found that actually Montauk charges the most and is more than what we are charging. We are more in line with East Hampton. But just to tell you what we did, the first category, up to 5,000 pounds, is remaining the same at $150 per landing. It was 2 and 3 that were changed, and they were changed only in a minor way. So the fee for again, up to 9,999 pounds was actually $225 per landing. So we're going up by $25 to $250. And again, in the largest helicopters up to 15,000 pounds, the fee is going from $350 per landing to $400 per landing. But that is also including that with that size helicopter, the helicopters that are run by the commercial company Blade, that charges quite a bit of money for people to come out to the Hamptons. And so it seemed again reasonable that the village could capture some additional funds to keep us competitive with other airports on the East End. We're still not as high as Montauk, but again, to keep us in the ballpark of where we should be really for this. And we can use the monies from this to actually maintain the heliport as well as the parking lot across the street, which needs a little bit of help. And so this is one way that we can generate some income to help, be able to do some work at that parking lot, because that parking lot is where people go for the heliport. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Whereas Detective Bernard J. Babinski has advised the village that he will be retiring effective July 27th, 2025. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and trustees hereby accept his retirement letter, thank Detective Babinski for his many years of service, and wish him well in his retirement. I will make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Whereas the Village of Southampton Board of Trustees has determined that the vehicles and tools listed below be surplus, and whereas the Village Board is authorizing the Superintendent of Public Works to place vehicles and tools surpluses out to auction, now therefore be it resolved, the Village Board has declared the following items surplus. 2000 GMC utility body pickup, VIN number 1GTHK34ROYR124767. 2017 Ford Explorer, VIN number 1 FM5K8AR6HG0080. 2015 Kubota RTV, serial number 19111. 2006 Ford Ambulance, VIN number FDXE45P06HB15068. 2010 UD 2600 garbage truck, VIN number JNAPA81H4AK80020. 2011 Chevy Tahoe, VIN number 1G2NSK2E09BR282491. 2007 Spalding Hot Patch Trailer, VIN number T4D0727033437. 2019 Ventilation Saw 16 bar. 2019 Ventilation Saw 20-inch bar, 8 Bridgestone M724 tires. I make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the written request submitted by Alex King from Southampton Village Ocean Rescue to volunteer as lifeguards for the Surfers Healing Event at Ponquag Beach on Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I make the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the beach event application for Housing Neck Beach on Friday, September 12th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. for 100 guests. Parking exception letters will be provided and prominently displayed on vehicles during the event. I make the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the save the date for the Southampton Artists Association to host its 26th annual Outdoor Art in the Park event in Agawam Park during the weekend of July 18th, 2026 to July 19th, 2026 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to include the setup date of Friday, July 17th, 2026 from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. DPW and building maintenance will be notified to ensure the sprinkler system is deactivated during the event. I make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have actually 5 walk-ons that came about late in the day, some from our grant writer. So I would like to make a motion to have these additional supplemental agenda added to the regular agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, here's the first one. Resolved, William Menger, as mayor of the Village of Southampton or his designee, is hereby authorized and directed to file an application for funds from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in accordance with the provisions of Title IX of the Environmental Protection Act of 1993 in amount not to exceed $675,000 with local matching share to total 50% of eligible project costs, and upon approval of said request to enter into and execute a project agreement with the state for such financial assistance to this Village of Southampton for the World War I Monument Restoration Project, and if appropriate, a conservation easement preservation covenant to the deed of the assisted property. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Second one, resolved, William Menger as mayor of the Village of Southampton or his designee is hereby authorized and directed to file an application for funds from the New York State Department of State Environmental Protection Fund under the Long Island South Shore Estuary Reserve Local Assistant Grant Program, an amount not to exceed $506,771, with local matching share to total 25% of eligible project costs, and upon approval of said request to enter into and execute a project agreement with the state for such financial assistance to this Village of Southampton for the Taylor Creek Habitat Restoration Project. I will make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the following member to the Southampton Village Committee with a term expiring June 30th, 2026. The Senior Citizens Affairs Committee, Carolyn Sartain Anderson is the person to be added. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Rob?
I don't, sorry, don't see it. Thank you. Resolve, the Board of Trustees approves the hiring of the Cooper's Beach booth attendant at an hourly rate of $18 per hour, effective Friday, August 8th, 2025, and it's Elia Donahoe. I'll make the motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Lastly, number 5, resolve the Board of Trustees approves the hiring of the student intern 2 in the building department for 2 days a week at an hourly rate of $24, effective Monday, July 28, 2025 to Friday, August 29, 2025. Christopher M. Talbot. I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Discussion, he's going to be actually, what do you call it?
Digitizing.
Digitizing the
Scanning.
record, scanning hard copies so that they are now in an electronic copy.
Is he
Yeah.
the building inspector's son?
He is. I don't think he's a junior because I think he has a different middle name. So, but he is the building inspector's son. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. With that, we will go to comments from board members, but then we will have to go to executive session after that. So why don't we go ahead and start with Trustee Coburn?
Thanks. I'll try to be very quick. I first want to just give one final thanks to the Southampton Arts Center for the incredible flag exhibit. It closed on Sunday, ran for 2 months. It was seen by thousands of people, both residents and visitors, to uniformly great praise. It was a very moving exhibition. So kudos to the SAC team and to John Munsky, whose personal collection, poetry, and narratives were the majority of the exhibit. Wonderful exhibit. Also on Sunday, I visited the Southampton Artists Association Art Fair in Agawam. I think it ran, the one we just approved for next year, ran this year. It was very well presented. I saw a lot of visitors on Sunday. I hope the artists had as attractive a time as their art provided on the park grounds. A week ago Sunday, I attended the Loan Sharks concert at Cooper's Beach. Along with about 1,000 residents. It was a very packed beach. They were blessed for the first time in a few years with very good weather. And the audience ranged from 2 years old to 92. It was a fantastic evening, so I wanted to give kudos to Matt Weeks and his team for having the beach in tip-top condition, and thanks to all the residents, both in the village and out, who came to enjoy our beach on Sunday evening. I've been working with Matt, just to mention, on some medium and longer term just planning, nothing too expensive or too fancy, but trying to get a bit of a planning process. So sometime after the summer, when we've reviewed what went well and what needs some work for next year, we'll come back with basically some infrastructure and storage and efficiency items befitting the #1 beach in the country. And I guess that's it. Make one last quick comment on traffic. I appreciate, Roy, what you said about the crisis that some of our residents are facing. For some of them, it's also the shock of the new, because it didn't affect them until a little bit last summer and greatly this summer. And I would just say I'm open-minded to everything, but I think we should have a principle of not doing any harm to adjacent neighborhoods that are already experiencing difficulty. I know, Len, that's a big principle for you in your work with the town and the county.
It's all about fairness. Yeah.
Fairness. That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Coburn. We'll go to Trustee Simeoni.
Yeah, just a shout out to the Southampton Cultural Center. They have some great programs coming up for the month of July and August. There's a show in the gallery for July and August called a Grunge Pop Celebration from Adam Baranello that I think people should see. There's also a piano fest in the Hamptons on Monday, July 21st, which has already passed, I'm sorry. And
There might be another one next Monday.
yeah,
Yeah.
so every Monday. Then you have obviously the concerts in the parks. The next one's called The Best Shot, a tribute to Pat Benatar at 6:30 p.m. in Agawam Park on July 23rd. Definitely something worth going to attend. And for a few laughs, there's a Jackie Mason musical being set up for Saturday, July 26th. At 7 p.m. and Sunday, July 27th at 2 and 7 p.m. Definitely something that we should want to attend. And that's it. Well, have a good time.
Excellent. Trustee Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. As someone who's in the village every day and dealing with folks coming into my store, I can say that pretty much every day as people come in, they go, wow, the village is really packed. And, just anecdotally from my own point of view, yes, there are a lot of people here this summer, and we're right at the midpoint of our summer season. And it's nice to see so many people enjoying our beautiful village, and not that the Board of Trustees can claim any responsibility for why so many people love our village, but we got to be doing something right, that so many people choose to come here and then walk down our streets and enjoy our beautiful village. And we should be proud of the work we are doing in order to keep them coming back and enjoy what we do. As I say that, with the more people, we certainly have to thank our PCOs, our police officers, our firemen, our ambulance people, our DPW guys, everybody here in Village Hall, because with more people comes more work, and it's hot, and it's busy, and the traffic is tough. And I want to just give all of those folks a real thanks for hanging in there and doing such a good job while it's so crowded. And as we were talking about traffic, and you certainly understand that if we move to help the folks on Lee and Captain's Neck, the problem does probably move someplace else, whether to Halsey Neck or wherever. But I do want to point out that one of the few people who, all the folks who live on Hill Street, including our trustee here, Rob Coburn, they are in the brunt of the battle, because what we're trying to do is make Hill Street even more congested so that they don't go on the other side streets. And this poor guy has to sit here and look at the traffic every day.
But
and
Len promised he's going to get it moving.
Len is going to get it fixed. Len is going to get it fixed.
You can
But
count on that.
it is tough for us as this group to face this very monumental issue that really, as the mayor said, it's just shuffling. You're moving water from one pipe into another pipe, and we're all doing the best we can to try and get it done. And I, again, congratulate and I thank the police department for doing what they do. And in no way do we ever want to point any fingers at the police department for not doing more to make this better. I mean, they're just trying to do what we tell them to do, and unfortunately, there's not that many things that we can tell them to do that's going to solve this. That said, it's busy, it's crowded, it's hot, so everybody be kind, be courteous, and drive slowly. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Trustee Zananti.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to comment that I think that this new format for our work sessions is a nice evolution for this board. I think, and I'm glad a number of residents came. I'm sorry they came, for the reason they came, but I'm glad that they could hear the back and forth and the discussion about these issues. And I think, as I said, it's a nice evolution. It adds to transparency and information, which I think is important. Traffic, you're right, we can't just push it around from neighborhood to neighborhood. Public safety is primary concern, and that will be the guiding light when we go to talk to the town and ultimately the county. I think the workforce housing proposal is also a nice evolutionary step for this board. Profitability is important for the, probably not developers to buy these buildings, but the owners who have these homes or these buildings to allow alternate uses or mixed uses. So I'm excited about that very much. And with that, yes, also want to say the Southampton Artists Association had over 50 exhibits last weekend. That was a very successful weekend for them, and again, shows the vibrancy of the village as you just discussed. So you're always a tough act for me to follow, but thank you, and I'll say good night to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zananti. So I just want to say that I believe we are finally finished with the corner of Main Street and Job's Lane. The final bump out of the sidewalk and the repaving with the bricks was completed, I believe it was early this morning. And so the cones are gone, the yellow tape is gone, and the crosswalk there is now operational. I've seen many people using the button to press to cross the street. It is much safer than it was prior to that, when people would just run across because we had no walk or don't walk signs. And I honestly think now that the pole has the base on it, it's covered up the bolts going into the ground, it looks a lot better. And so I think that will be something that people will appreciate, not only for residents, but also visitors that come to our village that don't know exactly the way the traffic situation works around here, especially when it's so crowded. But I do think that now that it's finished, it actually looks pretty good and works very well. I also want to say that very shortly we will be having a ribbon cutting at the Southampton History Museum, because the renovation work there is almost complete. I think they're finishing up some windows there, but it will be completed very soon, and I would like to again have a ribbon cutting for the reopening of the restoration of that historic house right on Meeting House Lane in the heart of our village. I also did go to the Art in the Park on Saturday. I was there, so that's why I didn't run into you on Sunday. And it was a beautiful day. The artists were very proud of their work. There was one woman who really amazed me. She actually fishes, and then she uses an ancient Japanese technique of using the fish and printing to emboss paper with the image of the fish. And it was, she's got beautiful tuna fish, beautiful, it really was amazing. And there was a yellowfin tuna that she then hand colors the yellow in. And honestly, I thought they were beautiful works of art. And it's amazing that she starts by fishing and then using the fish to create these works of art. But that was just one person I stopped off to visit, and I think it's great to have that art in the park. 1 weekend of summer, it's really wonderful because they're also local artists, and it's very nice to feature local artists here in the heart of the village. This week coming up, I would just mention on Thursday, Audrey Gruss is once again having her Hope for Depression. She does it. Her mother suffered from depression, so she started this charity to help people that also suffer from depression. And the kickoff will be at 10 a.m. on Job's Lane at the Jennifer Miller store, which is right there on the south side of Job's Lane, kind of close to Main Street. But again, welcome anybody that would like to participate in the opening of the Hope for Depression, which will also have a race, a running race this weekend. But that will be at 10 a.m. At the Jennifer Miller store on Job's Lane. And other than that, again, it's, as Roy was saying, it's the middle of summer. It's very busy. There are a lot of people in our village. The restaurants seem to be doing very well. I'm waiting for Doug Guglia's restaurant to open, Phoenix, right where Le Chef used to be. I think it's going to open maybe within the next month. It looks like he's almost finished there. And I want to say to everybody, I appreciate their patience while the new septic system is put in behind Shippey's, because that's been quite an undertaking and taken a little longer, I think, than we realized. but it's allowing Shippies to expand, which I think most people appreciate. And the village for this work will actually get 10 additional parking spaces in the parking lot that Shippies is paying for. It's not coming out of the taxpayer dollars. Shippies is paying for 10 additional parking spaces that are open to everybody, sort of behind where Rotations is. So that would be part of the plan when it's finished, and we're hoping that it'll be finished in the next week or two, I hope. But anyway, I think that'll be good. They are also paying for new drainage at that location in the parking lot so that, again, we mitigate any flooding. You may have seen a new curb went in to prevent the water from running onto the grassy property of the Southampton Arts Center, which is village property, and it used to run on there and became very sort of swampy and always damp and never drying out. But we had them put in a curb. Again, Shippies is doing this at their expense, a curb with new drainage so that, again, we can control the flooding in that area and also keep the water out of the Southampton Arts Center grounds. So with that, again, I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the summer, and I am making a motion to adjourn to executive session for this discussion of legal matters. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, it is now, I should give you a time, sorry, 8:14. The village board is coming out of executive session where no action was taken. I am now looking for a motion to close this meeting of the village board of trustees. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Good night.